Welcome to Meet the Candidate. And my guest for this session is Dave Wilson, who's a candidate for the 5th Congressional District for the Federal House of Representatives. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, we're glad you could make it into the station and have this Get Acquainted interview. And I always start with asking people, tell me about where you grew up and how that's affected your life.
Sure. So I grew up in a small town in Illinois near Moline, which is the world headquarters for John Deere. And so everybody knows John Deere, and my mother grew up in that community, and my father was originally from Montana, but his folks moved to Moline to get work there at the factories. And so it was a working class town, a union town, but it was a great place to grow up. My mom was a teacher. My dad worked in the factories until he saved enough money to buy a gas station. And eventually he added a Firestone Tires franchise there, and I was conscripted at the age of 12 to be an indentured servant. So these hands have changed about 10,000 tires in my time. I went to work after I got out of high school. I went to work in the factories too because the pay was better, especially better than what my dad paid me. And so I worked there 3 years full time while I finished college, and then when I got out of college, I wanted to see the big city, so I moved to Los Angeles. And the first place I went to work was the first national retail company that sold personal computers out of the box.
Well, what was your major in college that led you to that job?
Oh, it didn't line up. I was a communications major, and so this just happened to be the first place I interviewed and got hired. And I had no intention of working with computers, but I got started in it. I was just in the right place at the right time. And so 3 years later, that company transferred me to Spokane and to be the district manager. So I ran a large retail operation. I had 29 stores in 4 states, and it was based in Spokane. And I met my wife here. She's a Spokane native. We raised all 6 of our kids here. All my kids went through the Meade School District, graduated from Meade High School. Now I have 8 grandchildren, and 3 of them are in the Meade School District as well. And because of my experience in the personal computer industry, I started a computer training company that I ended up running for 30 years, Interface Computer School.
Okay. I think I know exactly where that was.
Did that ring a bell?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So I did that for 30 years, and then I sold that to one of my employees, and I started doing consulting work. I've always been active in the community and in my professional organizations. I was a 29-year member of the Chamber of Commerce. I coached youth sports for 13 years. I was on leadership in boards for regional and state vocational education organizations. And then I was also elected to serve on a national commission for vocational education. And that was a great experience. I went to Washington, D.C. 3 times a year for a week. So I decided to get into politics and ran for Congress as an independent candidate in 2014 and 16. It's pretty difficult to do. I tried. And then in 2018, I ran for the state house for state rep in the 6th district, and I lost by less than 1% out of almost 69,000 votes. And I wasn't going to run this year, but the pandemic, because of the pandemic, I decided to run.
Okay. I want to go back a bit to that some of that volunteer experience. Is there a particular something that you got particularly passionate about as you were involved in those community activities?
Well, first of all, I really loved coaching youth sports. That was a lot of fun, and I coached a lot of kids in the Meade School District, just really super good kids, and I always tried to coach kids that went to school with one of my kids, and I got to know their parents, and so that was a great experience. I wouldn't trade that for anything. And then I was very passionate about vocational education, and I still am. I think that it's, college is not meant for everyone, and I think a lot of people would benefit from vocational training. And so Interface Computer School, we were a vocational technical college, and the boards I served on were boards that basically helped shape the education, the quality of the education, the regulatory process of the education, and the curriculum. And so that was really rewarding work. And I especially liked being on that national board. I was on it for 8.5 years, and I actually was the chair of it for 3 years. And it was just a wealth of experience in educational policy and governance. And so I feel that was good training to go into government work. That's one of the reasons I'm running for office.
Well, that's a good place to come to that last minute or two to let you have the floor for the final question, which is to explain why should voters select Dave Wilson for 5th Congressional District Representative.
I must have talked too much. I didn't mean to use all that time. I'm sorry.
No. Everybody has such interesting life stories. It's like I could talk with people for, some people for an hour, and then there's some people I got to pull information out of. But
well, one of the things that I'm proud of that I neglected to mention is I helped start a 501c3 nonprofit here in Spokane called People for Effective Government, or PEG. And I don't know if you've heard of PEG.
I've not heard of it.
But
take a little time to tell us about it.
Well, PEG is a nonpartisan organization that believes in bipartisanship. And so the goals of PEG, the mission of PEG is to have effective government that is fiscally responsible, that offers a solid social safety net for people that need it, and to have a civil society. And so we started PEG in 2017. We ended up getting nonprofit status, which that's not easy to do.
Right.
And we've had lots of great speakers in there. We've had Ambassador Ryan Crocker was a great draw for us. We've had Sam Reed, former Secretary of State, and several other people, former elected officials, and then experts in their field. So PEG is alive and thriving. I had to step away from PEG while I ran for office, but PEG is one of the reasons I'm running. That's why I ran as an independent. I've always believed in good government and bipartisanship, and I think that's what we need to move towards today, and that's one of the reasons I'm running, is there's too much anger and there's too much incivility in politics today and not enough bipartisanship.
Okay. Well, if you'd like, you can still have a last minute for your elevator speech. Why vote for Dave Wilson?
Well, pretty much what I just said. Again, I believe in fiscal responsibility. I think that, this is unusual times. The pandemic is different. So I was all for the additional relief spending that was made, because you have to keep things going when you have a national crisis like we did. But in normal times, we need to be fiscally responsible. And then we also need to make sure we're taking care of people that need the help, because some people don't have all the advantages that we did. And so I think that those social safety net programs need to be in place. And again, civil society. And to have a civil society, you need to have a functioning government. Government has a role. It's not a job creator, but it's the mechanism that sets the ground rules so that people play by the rules, and that we have order and not disorder in our society.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you're able to come into the station today, Dave, and good luck with the rest of the campaign.
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
90 million Christians are eligible to vote.
40 million didn't.
That's 45%
of eligible Christians not voting.
We can change that.
We believe We Vote was designed to arm people of faith with information on candidates
and how they line up with biblical and constitutional principles.
It's simply WeBelieveWeVote.com.
We're on a mission to rev up the 2020 election.
Tell your friends, your neighbors, and especially your pastors to rev up.
Be an educated voter.
Arm yourself with truth based on the Word of God.
2020, rev up.
Register, educate, vote.
Rev up.
Rev up.
Rev up 2020.